I suppose if I were to begin this video with an image of the creature in question, some of you would say, but you've just done the Griffin for 8 videos later and you want to pull a fast one on us and copy paste your content? Dislike. I'm kidding, of course. I know my audience is perfectly reasonable and wonderful. Still, it might seem odd that I aim to retread familiar ground so soon. Rest assured, despite the superficial similarities, the Ophiuchus is well deserving of its own time in the spotlight. So, what are we talking about exactly? This mysterious Ophiuchus, also referred to as Epimachus. It is primarily a heraldic beast, but it was also believed to exist outside of crests and sigils. However, its descriptions are widely varied, even outdoing the griffin in inconsistency. This is part of the reason why it is extremely hard to separate Ophiuchi from their close relatives. Through my research, I think I found all variations, but with such an elusive beast, there may always be more. Let's begin with one of the most common images. This Ophiuchus has the body of a lion, wings and head of an eagle, and the tail of a camel. According to this depiction, the lack of ears, eagle front legs and the tail are the key differences. However, griffins do not always have ears or eagle legs, and when it comes to old drawings, differentiating camel and lion tails is not that easy. There's a more distinct variation too. Here the Ophiuchus swaps the eagle parts with dragon ones. This would be easy enough to spot, but I only found 2 instances of it, and one is rather hard to make out. I mean, that one could be a simple dragon was it not for the surrounding art, but we'll get to that later. To make matters worse, this is not the end of the variants. It might very well have ears and a bare or simply short tail. Wings might be missing or its body can be serpentine, although I found no such depictions. Their beaks might be weird and pointy, or they could simply be half camel abominations. Quite the list, but I should choose a single one of these moving forward to have a general image representing it. The dragon-like one seems unique enough, but it's not that common, so I'll stick to this image for now. The Ophiuchus is actually rather rare in heraldry, regardless of the fact that it seems to have been around for quite some time. It was originally meant to mean valor as a symbol, but since the 16th century, it has been used as the heraldic animal of surgery. Indeed, it is used in the crest of the London Company of Barber Surgeons even today, albeit its form has changed over the years. Yep, the generic dragon is one such variant. Also, a gentleman called Alan Roy Hudson seems to have incorporated the beast into his personal crest, bestowed upon him by the Governor-General of Canada. He is also a surgeon, just to clarify. Based on all these factors, there seems to be only one surefire way to differentiate a griffin from an Ophiuchus, knowing who the crest belongs to. The story of the Ophiuchus does not end here. However, before we go any further, I must highlight something about what is coming up. There were only 2 sources I found which talk about these aspects. One of them is a book I usually use for research, which I trust wholeheartedly, while the other is a wiki entry with no citations. The latter does have information that differs from my book, so I'm inclined to believe that it's not a copy, indicating the fact that there might very well be a different, credible source behind it, but I cannot be sure. In conclusion, you might want to take the following information with a grain of salt. The Ophiuchus is not born with its wings, they develop over their lives. The beasts reside in the Middle East, where medieval European travelers and invaders were occasionally offered coconuts and antelope horns as valuables by the locals. They were supposed to be Ophiuchus eggs and horns, which is really strange as they are never mentioned to have such weapons. These Middle Easterners did not stop there though, they often told tall tales about Ophiuchi swooping down from the night sky, grabbing animals the size of juvenile elephants. This also seems to contradict European beliefs, as Ophiuchi were thought to be timid herbivores. This latter is supported by the fact that since the olden days, these creatures seem to have moved into London. There they skulk around at night, swooping down from the darkness, searching for leftover fruits and vegetables behind markets closed until morning. Those on the streets at nightly hours can easily spot them. I hope that these aspects are authentic, as they were a great driving force behind me deciding to make a video on the Ophiuchus. The nocturnal griffin that's the equivalent of a flying herbivorous fox. I think that's neat. Obviously, the Ophiuchus is nothing more but an imaginary animal, but an actual bird genus carries the same name, Epimachus. The sicklebills are 2 bird of paradise species endemic to New Guinea. There's not much in common between the heraldic monster and the animals, as their name refers to their sickle-like bill in Greek. This is most likely nothing more than a coincidence. Ophiuchus, on the other hand, is said to derive from the Greek ophiuchus, the constellation of the serpent, although I do not really see why that would be beyond the weirdly similar names. That's all the information I could find on the elusive monster, but we are not done here. Time for me to create a realistic version of the Ophiuchus, which is the other reason I chose this creature for the letter O. If you've seen my Griffin video, I basically described why making up 6-limbed realistic vertebrates is not something I'd like to do often, as there aren't many good ways to go about it. However, Ophiuchi possess just the right blend of properties that make it eligible for a different approach. As you very well know, there are no living or extinct animals with a spine and the number of limbs necessary for our beast. Or are there? Considering the fact that Ophiuchus wings are occasionally omitted, they are even said to be born without them, and the additional mixture of both reptilian and avian features, one particular candidate stands out. I'm sure most of you have heard of flying lizards, the Draco genus. These wonderful little animals have patagial membranes helping them glide through the air. Elongated ribs support these appendages, enabling them to traverse relatively long distances in the air. While this is certainly no flying, this is as close as we can get with a four-legged creature. Now, before we get into the details of how this fits into the legends, let's finish designing our creature. So we'll take a template similar to the Draco lizards. While these animals are insectivores, since they belong to the Agamidae family, it's not much of a stretch to have our distinct genus be herbivorous. Their similar evolutionary path led them to developing the same membranous wings, which they also use to glide from tree to tree but in search of fruits rather than insects. Since their wings are retractable, some might have the impression that not all have them, especially the younger ones. Our frugivorous lizards over time grew larger as they did not require such high agility to catch their prey. They had the luxury to amass more weight. However, over time their gliding became more cumbersome and less efficient. They needed a solution evolution provided in the form of feathers. With the increased lift they gained from an expansive plumage and their bones becoming hollow, they retained their superb aerial prowess even with larger bodies. I mean, not too large, maybe the size of a weasel? How could this be, you ask? Feathers evolved on dinosaurs who are very different from lizards. Surely an agamid could not become a bird. Well, I would not call our Ophiuchus in progress a bird, especially not in a taxonomical sense. You see, there is a phenomenon called convergent evolution. This basically refers to evolution's tendency to come up with similar solutions to a problem, even if the organisms in question are not related. This can be seen in sea mammals, for example, who developed a shape rather similar to fish, including flippers. While they are not that similar at a deeper level, it is still a rather convincing proof. With this in mind, I do not think we could not expect something similar to happen here. Sure, it would take quite a lot of time as feathers are very complex structures, but it's certainly not out of the question. So let's take a look at what we have here. The tail could easily be turned into one resembling that of a camel, especially since those feathers at the tip would be wonderful at steering and providing more lift. Wings are both bird and dragon-like, as is the head with a beak-like mouth. Since frugivores can get by without teeth, their absence further supports gliding. The body can be considered serpentine by some, and the small feathers are rather similar to hair. There's only one thing amiss. The legs could be seen as avian or draconic, but definitely not leonine. Maybe from afar in the dark. They are elusive creatures after all, who seek solace from raptors through their nocturnal lifestyle. Alright, my Ophiuchus is not a perfect match, but how could it be with so many features? Surely there would be more species in this genus, ones with longer beaks, fancy crests resembling ears, wings with less feathers and a naked head. There could be one with owl-like feet, those are almost feline. Although the bear tail could only be a wounded individual, as lacking that would be serious trouble when it comes to steering. Camel next to no-go too. There's just no reason for it, and it would just be that weight. This final version would represent the genus best. Yes, we indeed made an entire genus, not just a single species, but we had to do that, else we'd have to omit some features. Now let's see if this fits all the legends. Some of you might be saying this is an unsatisfactory solution as gliding is not flying. Well, I'm gonna semantics you on that one. It's only ever stated that Ophiuchi swoop down from the night sky. Swooping is something a gliding animal could very much do. The Arabian tails might also be ones to cause problems, not really though. Coconuts and antelope horns clearly indicate that they deceived Europeans. Therefore, the stories of them grabbing baby elephants are not real either. I mean, of course they aren't real, but I meant in the context of our custom animal. How could they even be real? Dracos live in South and Southeast Asia, not in the Middle East. It is a lot more likely that the Arabs and a few European travelers have only heard of them, maybe seen a few during an expedition or while hauling goods. The wondrous animals grabbed the imagination of many people, but medieval depictions were never too accurate and misinformation ran rampant. Alright, but how did it get to London? Well, that's supposed to be a recent development. In our modern world, many animals and plants are taken to different habitats by humans, either intentionally or not. Some of these find themselves perfect living conditions and can even begin an invasion with no natural enemies in an ideal environment. Let's not go that far. While their feathery coat would protect them from the significantly colder weather, there'd surely be many birds of prey and adorable little killing machines picking them off. Still, it seems like Opinicide found themselves a niche in urban environments, taking a page out of the book of well-known animals and foraging leftovers and trash under the guise of night. They'd surely be an interesting sight going through the disposed takeaways and teabags of Englishmen.
Blimey, that blasted thing disarranged the rubbish once more. Governor.
I can't do a British accent. I can't do an accent, to be fair. Don't really have anything else to add here, so I hope you enjoyed the video so far. If you didn't, well, that's not gonna change now, is it? You had your chance. The next few months might be a little hectic upload-wise. I'm not exactly sure on how it will go, but I'll try to keep up the quality. Not that the videos I make are of a particularly high or even average standard. Anyway, I have Twitter, you can follow me there. I might even tweet a single time between uploads, so that's really fun. You could also subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it. I should have started with this, shouldn't I? Doesn't matter, video's over. Shoo!